Howdy folks, I'm Casey and I'm here with another video today on gardening, and we want to help you grow the best vegetable garden. I'm putting in a winter vegetable garden right now, and I wanted to share some of my tips, tricks, perspectives along the way and help you start out. So if you're a noob gardener or you're on your way, you're kind of on a journey to becoming great, this video could help you. And basically these principles are going to help most gardens. So if you're trying to identify where you want to start a garden, vegetables or not, this video should help. So we're going to be talking about where you want to put your garden, what you might want to plant in it, and then we're also going to talk about my favorite crops to grow. All right, a couple things before we get started. Now, I'm growing my garden here in Southern California. We have really good weather. It's still a little risky though because we're right here in the middle of winter, and I'm putting seeds in the ground. They could all get wiped out really quick, but if we did get a frost. It's just really rare here, so it's worth the risk to me. And a lot of the things that I'm doing to prepare my garden, that time's not going to get wasted, like bed prep and mixing in the soil. You know, maybe the seeds I put in today aren't going to grow, and that's okay because I already did all the hard work, and if they don't work out, I can just put some more in later. So to me, even though it's a risky strategy, it's a pretty low risk strategy. And it's worked so many times for me in the past that I'm not super afraid to do it. I've had, tomatoes grow in the winter. I see roses blooming in January all the time when we're supposed to cut them back here. So it's a little bit different gardening, but the warm season's coming. So even here, I think even though it's January, we can start seeds indoors for the warm seasons. I'm starting a couple warm season crops, which we'll talk about soon. So let's get into it. Where are you gonna put your garden? If you're not sure already, I have a couple tips on where you might wanna do it. The biggest one is using existing spaces. It's gonna save you so much time. Soil being one of the most important things for plants, and it can take years to invest and get a better soil. So if you have an existing planter, that's always a great place to start. The other part is a water source. Vegetables are pretty water intensive, so you're going to want to have a plan for your water, whether it's sprinklers, which would be ideal, or planning to set up, like a soaker hoses work really well for vegetable garden. Or if you have plenty of time and you're good about it, you can do the hose too, but it's just, you got to be a little realistic with yourself because it does take a ton of time and to hand water the plants. So if you have a job, if you have a busy lifestyle like me, it can be really tricky to fit it in because it's one of the first things you're gonna not do when you're busy, water the plants. So the other really big important thing for siting your garden is going to be the sun requirements. The amount of sun that you get is going to directly relate to what type of plants you can put in. If you get just a little bit of sun, you might not be able to grow anything there except house plants. Now, if you get a few hours of direct sun, you'll be able to grow herbs, green leafy vegetables. But if you want like the really fun crops like fruiting crops like tomatoes, cauliflower, eggplants, things that kind of bear fruit, you definitely need 6 hours plus of direct sunlight. So keep that in mind when you're siting your location. And a couple other things that play into where you want to pick your garden. And weeds can be a huge problem. There's a couple specific weeds like Bermuda grass or oxalis that are complete nightmares to deal with. And so if your area has some of those weeds that are really, really difficult to get rid of, you may want to deal with that before you get to planting, because once you plant, it's really hard to pull the weeds out among existing plants without hurting them. But if you just have some regular run-of-the-mill weeds like dandelions, some little grasses, you can get them, just pull them out by the root, and then you'll be ready to go. Also, when you're picking your area, if even if you have gardened there in the past, um, especially if it's a new area where you haven't done any soil work yet, I highly recommend that you research double digging techniques. Double digging is a way that you take the soil, you set it to the side, and then you go deeper into another layer of soil, and then you're able to fold in all the inputs, compost, Epsom salt, organic fertilizer, grow power, whatever fertilizers you like. I have some of my favorites, but that's going to allow you to mix at an even deeper level, which is really important for vegetables to have deep roots. Now, another thing you should think about when choosing where to put your garden is the aesthetic part of it. Now, vegetable gardens just aren't usually that attractive. They can be extremely neat and fun to see when they're showcased, but they take a lot of work to keep looking fresh and nice all the time. And some plants go through phases where they don't look so good and they're doing their thing, but they need to stay there. They don't look too good though. So that can be a bit of an eyesore. And so usually you'll have the veggie garden like maybe off to the side. Maybe it's not the first thing you see when you drive up or the first thing you see when you look out your window. Maybe you kind of strategically locate it. Now, I am deciding to start my garden. I'm doing it in stages though, and that's part of my risk minimization strategy, to where I'm not just putting everything in and doing a ton of work up front where it might not work because of the time of year. I'm just taking little nibbles of different spaces in my garden, and I'm starting with the best spaces and I'm working my way out. And so I'm building my garden kind of in phases, and I highly recommend that because it's easier on you to kind of do this digging and hard work over time rather than all at once. But that's something that you can decide. And one thing that I kind of had to do, like being in Southern California here, there's a ton of obstructions. There's houses, there's trees and fences even that are just kind of all over the place. It's a really dense area, and so especially in winter when the sun's lower in the sky, getting a lot more shade. So one thing I had to do for my garden is I have a tree above it, so I'm trimming a ton of branches out of it to let more sun hit my veggie garden. But keep in mind also, like when the summer comes around, the sun's gonna be like more directly overhead, so it's just gonna be kind of beaming down, and some of these areas that got completely shaded out earlier are now gonna be full sun. So try to think about that when you're choosing where your garden can go to. I think it'll be helpful in the long run. And so we kind of have a good idea on where to put our garden. I think. Highly recommend those existing spots. Usually if someone was a gardener, they knew where to put it. If you just have no clue, please ask for help. All right, so we've decided where we're gonna put our garden at this point, and now we're ready to install some veggie seeds or seedlings. How do we decide? How do we decide what to plant? Well, first thing is going back to the cold season and warm season. I'm here in the middle of winter, so I'm not starting tomatoes, I'm not starting eggplants, I'm not starting watermelons. They're gonna be really stunted and not do well, or maybe even die straight off the bat and not work out if I put them in right now. The general rule, and this is a really good nugget of knowledge that was trained to me by a veteran gardener, Don Rose, and he told me that the warm season technically starts when the nighttime temperatures are consistently above 55 degrees. And it's a great guide because, we want to go by dates, but Mother Nature doesn't work around our schedules. She does what she wants. So you can kind of tell what she's up to by looking at the nighttime average temperature. If it's dropping much below 55, you don't you don't really ideally want your warm season veg. Being that we're rolling into spring soon, I'm kind of nibbling away and I'm planting some quick growing cold season plants, and I'm gonna start rolling out my warm season plants over the next few months as I get more garden spots ready, get more prepped up. Now we get to choose, do we want seeds or seedlings? Seeds have a big advantage in cost, but they're going to take longer to grow. The seedlings have a bit of a head start, and you're paying for that up front. They can be quite a bit more expensive compared to seeds. Seeds can be a little more difficult to start, but there's going to be a couple tricks that I'll share with you later about how to make that a little easier. Because as a value driven video, I always want to share with you the trade-offs between price and time so you can make the best decision for yourself. Also, there's quite a few plants that have a preferred way of getting planted. Some plants do better when you plant the seed directly in the ground, where others will do better if you plant them in a little tray and then transplant them later. When I'm starting seeds, I've got a little trick to help them germinate, sprout. What I do oftentimes is I'll take the seeds and I'll put them in a damp paper towel and I'll fold it over the seeds, put that in a Ziploc baggie, and I'll throw it on top of the fridge for a day. What that does is it keeps the soils wetted down, because if seeds dry out, it's typically fatal. Like, they're typically gone, they die. And so when you keep the little tiny baby seeds, especially the little ones, they're up at the top of the soil, they can dry out so quick outside. So you really have to keep the new seed beds wetted down, or else they'll perish. So to kind of get them started through that really fragile phase, I'll put them in the baggies, and when I'm ready to plant, you can't do it too long, like a day or two later. Some of them are even like already sprouting. So it's a great little trick to get your seed started without having seed trays, making a mess, dealing with transplanting, all that stuff. Really good trick. And so now I'll talk to you about my favorite crops and what I'm planting in my garden right now. Things that if you live in this area or if you're in a Mediterranean climate, you could probably start right now too with some success. So one of my absolute favorite veggie to grow is sugar snap peas. They taste so good off the vine. It's no comparison to anything you've bought in the store. But if you've ever had one, I think you know what I'm talking about. Break off sugar snap peas, you eat the whole pod, and it tastes like candy. It's like nature's candy. It's so awesome, and they're pretty easy to grow. So always one of my big favorites, and highly recommend it. Those are something you can direct sow by seed, and I'm putting those in the back of my planter as the sun's looking down at my planter. I'm putting the peas in the very back because they will get tall. They're going to grow in a trellis. So I'm putting everything within my little garden height-wise towards the sun. So the lowest plants catch the sun, and then the medium plants get it next, tall ones get next. So that way the tall plants aren't shading out the rest of my garden. So with the sugar snap peas, they don't take that long. They don't like when it gets super hot, and so they're not going to last much longer, into summer and everything. But I've had such good luck with them, and I can't recommend that one enough. I'm also planting a ton of lettuce. Lettuce is really big at my house. We try to eat healthy, and we eat salads all the time, throw a bunch of stuff in it. You'll love the kitchen garden. And so with the lettuce, this is one of the ones I did end up buying a 6-pack for. I didn't buy many plants, but this was one I did just because I wanted to get it started now. I got the 6-packs instead of the 4-inch. If you know what I'm talking about, the 4-inch are single plants, whereas the 6-pack you get 6 in the same one and they're a little smaller. I just think it's a huge value to get the 6 instead of the 1. Usually they cost about the same price. So I always look for those 6-packs, although sometimes the hard to find varieties are only in 4-inch, but it'll cost you more. So not only am I doing the 6-packs with the lettuce, but I also have a ton of seeds. So I am successive sowing, which means every week or every 2 weeks, I'm putting a few more lettuce seeds in, like another row here and there. Because what that's gonna do is, by as much as we eat lettuce and frequently, I want to have it kind of readily available for us at all times. So if we sow it every week, then we should be able to harvest some more each week. That's the idea. And I don't know if you've ever had the homegrown lettuce, but it is another one of those plants that kind of has a tendency to taste a lot better than the store-bought ones. Cilantro. Cilantro is one of my favorite herbs to grow. It can be a little frustrating sometimes. It doesn't maybe last that long, but so I've learned a little trick with cilantro, and it's serving me really well. I'll throw a ton of cilantro seeds down wherever, and I'll try to let them come up like weeds. I did plant a little row of them formally because I want to make sure they work, because I do like putting that cilantro in my Mexican food. But what happens a lot with cilantro is that certain times of year when it's really cold, really hot and dry, it just dies out. So what I do is I let it go to seed. So it flowers up and like little butterflies love it. It's really pretty. And then after that, those flowers will turn into seeds, and those seeds will eventually fall to the ground. But before that, I'll grab them and I'll dry them out like a day or two in a warm, cool, dry place, and I'll save them. And I'll use those to start a next generation. It's amazing. It's almost like, for me, it's really it's really a joy to multiply plants. I'm not sure why I enjoy it so much, but tending the little plants, getting them go through like baby to maturity, and then reseed, and then have their seeds and being able to sprout them the next year, it's just like mind-blowing to me. And it's part of what makes it super fun for me. I feel like I'm winning because I didn't have to go rebuy those seeds. So there's little ways you kind of like win and get these little joys out of the garden, at least for me. And seed saving is a big part of that. So we'll probably talk more about that in the future. But cilantro is a really easy one to start with. And so other than that, I am doing spinach, Swiss chard, and I'm experimenting with beets. I'm gonna grow some beets. And that's pretty much it for now. We're gonna add more in there. There's one more that we're gonna talk about, my absolute favorite plant to grow. But just keep in mind, all these plants, they have hundreds of varieties. So say carrots, there's hundreds of different carrots. It's mind-blowing. But when you're growing them yourself, you get to choose which varieties sound good to you, which is really neat. And you get to choose varieties that are important to you, because most of the veggies you get in the store, they're grown based on how long do they last when you're shipping them, how uniform do they all look similar. Those aren't always the best reasons for us to grow those plants at home. So at home, you can grow plants based on flavor. It doesn't matter if it, lasts only 2 days in shipping. You're just walking it from the backyard to the fridge. So you can grow all these like highly perishable, very flavorful veggies, and you can basically grow things that are very difficult to find at a store or are very expensive to purchase at the farmer's market. Don't forget also on the seed packet, you're gonna see days to harvest, and that can help you really identify how long realistically to expect the plant to take to get to the maturity to when you can eat it. So if you're not sure if a plant's gonna work, you can always look at that and see like, gosh, well, if I'm planting this cool season crop like Brussels sprouts and it takes 120 days to grow and I'm already late, well, maybe I won't grow that one, because by the time it's ready to harvest, it's already gonna be very hot. And so probably that plant's not gonna be a great selection. So you can kind of use the days to harvest to narrow down your selections. However, there is one that I would recommend to everybody. It is so fun to grow. It's my absolute favorite plant to grow, and that is potatoes. Oh my gosh, I love growing potatoes. I love growing anything in the ground. I don't know why. I think it's the fact that you don't see it, and I'm a very visual person, so you just see the top growing. And then, when it comes time to harvest, you have to go digging in the ground and you have to go find it, and all of a sudden it's like you got one potato. Oh, there's another potato. Oh my gosh, there's like 10 potatoes here. It's incredible. Like, you start with potatoes, you just start out with one little seed potato, one little baby tuber, and I actually saved some of the tubers from my last harvest and replanted those. So there's another seed saving technique. The potato itself is the seed in this particular crop. So with the potatoes, I buried them, and there's a couple tricks with them too. Potatoes are one of the few plants that if you keep putting soil next to it, it'll just grow roots out. It won't kill the plant, it'll just grow more. So I've seen some really fun things in raised beds where you start with a potato kind of lower, and as it grows, you fill in more soil around it, more soil around it. All of a sudden, you've got one potato that turned into 20. Also, with potatoes, oftentimes you can't really tell the difference between homegrown and store-bought, so it is a little bit lower value there. However, I find that like purple potatoes are way more expensive in the store, and those are some of the ones I really like to eat. So like I'm growing purple potatoes here because it'll give me a better value than like trying to grow just a regular baked potato. You can get that in the store for like 50 cents. So it's kind of like, do I really want to spend all the time doing it when you could just go to the store and buy that particular one? Maybe not. All right, folks. Well, that pretty much covered everything I want to talk about in this video. I can't wait to make some new videos. So we learned about where to put your new garden, the three major parts of it: sun, soil, water. Those are the big three pillars. And those are the three main considerations to where your garden should go. And we talked about what to plant, and that's going to have a lot to do with what season it is, what's the temperature, and do you want to start with seeds or starters. Most root crops and beans, peas are better directly seeded into the garden, where a lot of the crops that take longer to produce and fruit up top are good for transplanting. And actually a big reason why people do transplanting with those is you could start them indoors right now, so that way when the 55-degree weather comes, they're ready to go. They're already started. I hope you enjoyed some of the tips, tricks that I shared. I hope you got value from it. That's always my goal here on the channel, is to provide value. So if you're interested in getting more updates like this, please hit the subscribe button, thumbs up this, and so that way I know you like it and I can provide you with some more. Now, also, it looks like y'all know about my potato obsession, so there's that.